The 2020 election was unique in many different ways. During the COVID-19 global pandemic, many Americans considered this to be the most important election in the history of the United States. An estimated 158 million Americans casted their ballot and voted in the presidential election, the most in American history. About 66% of the voter population participated in the election, the highest percentage since 1900. Georgia voter Jonathan Mays says he feels that many Americans understood just how crucial this election was.
That it was imperative that even if you voted Republican or Democrat, like you got out the vote, they make sure your voice was heard because this was probably one of the most crucial elections like in American history.
One of the major reasons for the massive voter turnout was the amount of people who early voted and used mail or absentee voting ballots. The 2020 election saw more early voters and mail in votes than ever before. The two biggest reasons for the massive amount of non-election day votes was fear of the pandemic and Donald Trump's continued slander for mail-in ballots and the legitimacy of the votes. Joe Brown, a Georgia voter, said it was important to vote early and be one of the first ones in line so he didn't have to wait long.
We took our due diligence and we were responsible, making sure we left our house early that morning to be in line first for that polling.
To be eligible to vote in the state of Georgia, you need to meet several requirements. You have to be at least 18 years of age, have not been found to be mentally incompetent by the court, not currently serving a felony sentence, and registered to vote. Once registered to vote, you have two options to vote: in person or mail-in ballots. If you vote in person, you can vote early or on election day at your designated polling location. Upon arriving at your poll location, you just need your photo ID and you will be able to complete your ballot at the location. To send your ballot through the mail in Georgia, you need to request a mail ballot application. Upon receiving the application, fill it out and submit the request to your local election office. When you receive your ballot, follow the instructions on filling it out and mailing it out. Joe Brown said there really was not anything out of the ordinary when voting because of COVID.
Everything went smoothly. We had to fill out our paperwork once we got there. And then I went to my electronic polling station and went out just like that.
Going into the 2020 election, Georgia was looked at as one of the key battleground states in the country, with 16 electoral votes up for grabs. Both parties spent a lot of time trying to win the state. About 5 million Georgians voted in the 2020 election, about 1 million more votes than the 2016 election. Joe Biden won the state of Georgia with 49.51% of the vote, making him the first Democratic candidate to win the state since Bill Clinton in 1996. Stacey Abrams, who served on the Georgia House of Representatives from 2011 to 2017, played a huge role in getting people to the polls and helping Joe Biden flip Georgia. Abrams made history in 2018 by becoming the first African American woman to make a bid for governor in the United States. She faced Republican candidate Brian Kemp. Kemp served as the Georgia Secretary of State from 2010 to 2018. During his time, Kemp canceled more than 1 million voters' registration due to inactivity or error. Stacey Abrams and others saw this as a form of voter suppression. Abrams lost to Kemp by 50,000 votes and attributes the canceled votes to her defeat. In the 2 years leading up to the election, Abrams and her team were able to register 800,000 Georgians to vote in the 2020 election and played a pivotal role in Biden winning the state. The Democratic Party expects those voters to vote in the pivotal Senate races in January. Both Georgia Senate seats were undecided on election night, with no candidate able to gather more than 50% of the vote. Now both Senate spots will be held to a runoff election in January. Democratic candidates Reverend Raphael Warnock and John Ossoff face off against incumbent Senators Kelly Loeffler and David Perdue. Warnock and Ossoff are attempting to become the first Democratic senators for Georgia since Zell Miller and Max Cleland in 2000. The Republican Party currently controls 50 of the 100 available Senate seats and only needs one more to win the majority of the Senate. If the Democratic Party wins both runoff elections, they will win the Senate with a 50-50 tie because of Vice President Kamala Harris serving as the tiebreaker, and will control the House of Representatives, the Senate, and the United States presidency. Joe Biden won the 2020 presidential election with 306 of the possible 538 electoral votes. Biden also won the popular vote with 81 million votes, defeating incumbent President Trump by about 7 million votes. Biden's 81 million votes are the most ever for a presidential candidate in American history. President Trump has refused to concede the election to President elect Joe Biden. Donald Trump has accused the states of Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Georgia, Arizona, and Nevada of voter fraud and has issued multiple lawsuits on all 6 states. President Trump won all 6 of the battleground states in 2016, which was key to winning the presidency. Trump has asked for multiple recounts in the 6 states and is trying to get his lawsuits pushed to the Supreme Court as fast as possible. President Trump called Governor Brian Kemp and other Georgia legislators on December 6th, asking them to overturn the vote and declare Georgia a victory for Trump. Georgia, Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin all completed their recounts and have confirmed Joe Biden the winner in their respective states. Jonathan Mays said he does not think the election was rigged.
I don't think it was rigged at all. I just think with the new age that we're going into, that a lot of people like just don't want to go to polls now, so they choose other avenues to make sure their voices are heard.
When the results of the election started to surface, many Trump supporters followed in the lead of the president, thinking that Biden won the election with fraudulent votes. As votes were being counted in battleground states of Michigan, Nevada, and Arizona, Republican protesters stood outside the locations with guns trying to enter the building. Their goal was to scare the vote counters and delay the election process. Protesters have also protested in the streets with guns and signs to reverse the election across the country. Counter protesters have met them with resistance, leading to violence and arrests across the United States. The 2020 presidential election has been the craziest election Americans have ever seen. On top of the typical mass amounts of political ads, we have experienced debates in empty rooms due to COVID-19, social distancing at the polls, and the president refusing to give up his presidency after the election results. A month after the election results, Trump supporters are still protesting the election, claiming voter fraud. This seems to be on par with the year 2020. This is Jeremy Welch for KSU News Now.